Secondly, I'm going to build a really great relationship, and when you lead the company through this process of strategically using their podcast, we usually say, look, you want to have two types of audience that you have in mind here. I mean, if this is the market you're in, you can talk to somebody who says, well, Steve, tell me what you're doing. But even if you don't, your colleagues will see this content. They'll want to promote it for you. And I've had setbacks over the years when people would say, oh yeah, you're a writer and you interview people who are writers and stuff. But my little business doesn't make sense. And you just hit a nail on the head. You've said something before. First you said you were some diabolical lawyer who said, aren't there too many podcasts? Aren't you overwhelmed already? One of the really interesting things we found out is that there are a lot of podcast listeners, especially businessmen, and a lot of them are curious about how this whole process works. But this came from a conversation I had with a friend of mine. And when I started the company, he asked me, who do you really want to be a hero here? And I started to describe him. It was the owner of the company, who somehow started this dream, and then has scratched and built so that they could really have a company that would let them live. And then, bam, the world hit them with a crooked ball, and then they crawled to the top of the mountain, above it, and they were hit again and again, and they went on and on. Steve Gordon, so, you have a second meeting, and you come back with these contacts and you come back with some ideas. If it's a perspective, and you've really thought about who that perspective is, I'm sure that one of these ideas is working with your company. And so I want you to check the interview. We check. It was a great interview. John Yanch, but if you send a letter to the same person who says, hey, I see you published a new book. I would like to interview you and promote this book. Well, suddenly you get a lot more attention. That small percentage, 15 out of 50, said yes, I will help you promote the book. And that's what brought the book out of nowhere. We had a very small list of letters from 1,000 people. And then the book ended up in the hands of 5,000 people I didn't know. The question is like, hey, John, if we had this conversation in 3 years, what would it take for you to enjoy your progress? And then shut up and listen to them. And they'll tell you what their future goals are. Does everybody want a podcast? I joke once and throw away what I hear. And I'm sure you hear it all the time. Oh, it's so much already. I'll tell you one more advantage if you do it for a while and interview a lot of people. In my case, at least, I recently published a book, and I just looked at all the people I've interviewed in the last 3 years. First of all, it's a great platform for building relationships. And secondly, it's a byproduct that you can send to all the people that you want to do business with and grow up with, so that they are interested in you and they don't lose sight of you. And I think that's a very important difference, because a lot of people come, sell, and they don't stop at how can I add value? Because you're right, John Yanch, and then I think that the underused strategy is to think about the customers that you really want to do business with. Maybe those strategic customers that would be very difficult to contact in other ways. Steve Gordon, well, I heard Seth Godin say that everyone needs a podcast, so I'll believe Seth.